What would really happen if you disappeared for 30 days? No messages, no posts, no explanations. Most people assume nothing would change, but that's where they're wrong. Because the moment you remove your presence, you remove the illusion, and suddenly people reveal who they truly are. Attention fades, silence grows, and what replaces it will either wake you up or completely shift how you see everyone around you. Most people live inside a social illusion they never question. You believe your value comes from how often people interact with you. Messages, likes, quick replies. It feels like connection, like relevance. But in reality, it's often just proximity and habit. You're available so people engage. You respond so the loop continues. And over time, you confuse that cycle with importance. But the truth is more uncomfortable. The more accessible you are, the less intentional people become with you. You turn into background noise, present but not truly noticed. That's the hidden cost of always being there. Because real value isn't measured by constant interaction, it's revealed through absence. When you're no longer available, when your presence is removed from the equation, something shifts immediately. People are forced to react without convenience, and that reaction exposes everything. Who reaches out? Who stays silent? Who doesn't even notice? It's not personal, it's behavioral, but once you see it, you can't unsee it, and that's where the illusion starts to break. So what does it actually mean to disappear for 30 days? It's not about being dramatic or cutting people off emotionally. It's about removing your constant availability. No posting, no checking who viewed your stories, no initiating conversations just to maintain presence. You step back quietly. No announcements, no explanations. You simply stop showing up the way people are used to. And this is where it becomes uncomfortable. The first few days will feel strange. You'll reach for your phone without thinking. You'll wonder if someone noticed. You'll feel the urge to send a message, to reinsert yourself into the loop. That impulse is deeper than habit. It's dependency. The need to be seen, acknowledged, validated. And when that disappears, even temporarily, it exposes how much of your behavior was driven by external feedback. But if you hold that line, something starts to shift. The silence begins to stretch. Notifications slow down. The noise fades. And in that space, you start noticing things you couldn't see before. Patterns. Who actually initiates? Who only responds when it's convenient? Who disappears the moment you do? It's subtle, but it's revealing. Around the second week, the emotional reaction changes. The anxiety starts to fade, replaced with clarity. You're no longer reacting to every notification, every message, every expectation. Your attention becomes yours again. And with that, your perspective sharpens. You begin to see how much of your time and energy was being pulled outward, towards people who weren't investing the same back into you. This is the real experiment, not just observing others, but observing yourself, your impulses, your need to reconnect, your discomfort with silence. Because disappearing isn't just about them reacting, it's about you realizing how much control you've been giving away without noticing. And then something even more revealing happens. The reactions start to divide into clear patterns. Not everyone responds the same way. In fact, most people fall into categories you've never consciously noticed before. First, there are the ones that don't notice at all. No message, no curiosity, no shift in behavior. Your absence doesn't register. And that realization hits harder than expected. Not because they're bad people, but because it exposes a truth. Your presence was never essential in their world. It was optional, replaceable. And once you see that, the dynamic changes permanently. Then there's the second group. They notice, but they don't act. Maybe they see your silence, maybe they even think about reaching out, but they don't. Why? Because your connection lived in convenience. As long as you were there, they engaged. But without your effort, there's no momentum, no initiative. And that silence speaks louder than any words ever could. It shows you exactly where you stood, without filters, without illusions. And then the rarest group is the one that changes everything. The ones that actually reach out, not with surface-level curiosity, but with intention. They notice your absence, and they break the pattern to reconnect. These are the people who value your presence, not your availability. And when you see who they are, the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. Your silence becomes a filter. It removes noise. It strips away assumptions. It reveals the structure of your social world in its raw form. Who invests, who consumes, who disappears when you do. And none of this requires confrontation, no conflict, no explanation, just absence. And that's the uncomfortable truth most people avoid. Because once you see these patterns, you can't go back to pretending everything is equal. You can't treat every connection the same. The illusion is gone, and what replaces it is clarity. Sharp, undeniable clarity about who actually belongs in your life and who was just passing through.
And this is where the real shift happens, because at some point it stops being about them and starts becoming about you. The silence you created externally begins to build something internally. For the first time in a long time, your attention isn't being pulled in every direction. No constant notifications, no pressure to respond, no subtle need to maintain relevance. And in that space, something rare starts to form: control. You begin to realize how much of your behavior was reactive, how often you replied out of habit, not intention, how many interactions were driven by the need to stay visible, not because they actually mattered. And once that awareness hits, your standards start to shift. You no longer feel the same urgency to engage. You become more selective, more intentional, and that alone changes your entire presence. Because when you stop being constantly available, you stop being predictable, and predictability lowers perceived value. But when your presence becomes limited, controlled, and intentional, it creates something powerful: scarcity. And scarcity, whether people admit it or not, increases attention. People begin to notice what's not always there. They begin to question your absence, and without trying, you become more relevant by doing less. But the real power isn't in how others react, it's in how you feel. More grounded, less dependent, more aware of where your energy goes. You stop chasing conversations that don't add value. You stop maintaining connections out of obligation, and instead you start choosing where you show up and why. That's the shift most people never experience, because they never give themselves enough distance to see it. But once you do, something changes permanently. You don't go back to constant availability. You don't feel the need to prove your presence. You operate differently, and that difference is what quietly elevates your value without you having to say a word. At the end of those 30 days, one thing becomes clear. You didn't lose people, you revealed them. The silence didn't create distance, it exposed what was already there: who stayed, who disappeared, who made the effort when it was no longer easy. And that clarity is something most people avoid their entire lives because it forces a decision. You can't unsee what you've seen. But the deeper realization goes beyond others. You start to see yourself differently. Less dependent on constant interaction, less driven by the need to be noticed, more in control of where your time and attention go. And that shift is where real power begins. Not loud, not obvious, but stable, quiet, and undeniable. Because the moment you stop needing to be present everywhere, your presence starts to matter more where it actually counts. You become intentional, selective, grounded, and people feel that difference without you having to explain it. So here's the challenge. Don't announce it, don't explain it, just step back, remove yourself from the noise, let the silence do its work. Because what you'll gain isn't just clarity about others, it's control over yourself. And once you have that, everything changes.